The silence of the house tonight is a heavy cloak. It wraps around me, a constant reminder of the secret. I carry a secret that feels like a physical weight in my chest. I imagine it as a dark stone pressing down on my lungs, making every breath a shallow struggle. Mark, my husband of 10 years, sleeps soundly in the next room, his peaceful breathing a stark contrast to the storm raging within me. I watch the shadows dance on the wall cast by the faint street light, filtering through the window, and each flicker seems to mock my deception, my betrayal. Our story began beautifully, as most do, filled with the usual promises of forever and the hopeful optimism of young love. We met in college, a whirlwind romance that quickly deepened into something substantial, something we both believed was unbreakable. We laughed often. We dreamt together of a future house with a garden, a dog, a family, a simple yet profound vision of happiness. Mark was my anchor, my best friend, my confidant. He was steadfast, kind, always there. I loved him deeply, profoundly. But time has a way of dulling even the brightest lights. Slowly, subtly, the everyday routine crept in. The laughter became less frequent. The shared dreams were replaced by individual responsibilities. Our conversations shifted from heartfelt confessions to mundane updates about work or bills. We still loved each other, I believe we did, but the passion, the spark, the intense connection that once bound us so tightly seemed to have faded into a comfortable familiarity. For Mark, his work became his solace, his focus. He was building a career, a future, and I admired his dedication. But sometimes I felt I was losing him to his ambition. He was there physically, but often absent emotionally. My needs, my feelings, my yearning for connection seemed to go unnoticed or perhaps unacknowledged. I felt unseen, unheard. A silent observer in my own life, a gradual slipping into a quiet loneliness that festered beneath the surface of our seemingly perfect life. Then came the conference, a week-long seminar in a different city, an escape from the routine, a chance to breathe different air. It was there. I met David. He was everything. Mark was not, at that moment, spontaneous, charming, attentive. He listened with an intensity that made me feel truly heard, truly seen for the first time in what felt like years. He asked about my passions, my dreams, my hidden desires, things I had long since stopped talking about with Mark. His eyes held a warmth, a sparkle that ignited something long dormant within me. The flirting was subtle at first, an appreciative glance, a lingering touch on the arm, a shared laugh that felt too intimate, too knowing. It escalated slowly, insidiously. Dinners turned into late-night conversations at the hotel bar, then discreet walks back to our separate rooms, the air thick with unspoken desires. The forbidden thrill was intoxicating, dangerous, addictive. I felt alive again, vibrant, desirable, a woman rediscovered outside the confines of my roles as wife and homemaker. David made me feel desired in a way I had forgotten existed. He saw the woman beneath the layers of routine and responsibility, and he made her feel beautiful and interesting and worthy of attention. The guilt was a distant whisper drowned out by the thrill of the moment, the intoxicating novelty of being wanted, desired, pursued. David's compliments were like a balm to my wounded ego, his laughter infectious, his presence exhilarating. I felt myself being drawn into a vortex of emotion, a whirlwind of what-ifs and should-nots, a perilous dance on the edge of a precipice. One evening, after a particularly intense discussion about life and longing and the quiet desperation that can sometimes permeate long-term relationships, the line was crossed. We had shared too many drinks, too many confessions, too much unspoken tension. His room was just steps away from mine. The decision made, in a hazy moment of weakness, a desperate need for connection, for validation, for a fleeting taste of something new, something exciting, something that made my heart pound and my skin tingle. The immediate regret was a cold shock of reality, a splash of icy water on my face the moment it was over. The emptiness that followed was profound, immense, a chasm that opened up inside me. The brief thrill was replaced by a crushing wave of shame and self-loathing. I had betrayed everything I believed, in everything I had built, everything I had promised Mark. The warmth of David's touch was instantly replaced by the icy grip of guilt, a searing brand on my soul. Returning home was like stepping into a different dimension. I was a different person, carrying an immense burden, a secret that threatened to consume me. Mark was oblivious his cheerful greeting, a dagger to my heart. He hugged me, he kissed me, and every touch, every word felt tainted by the lie, by the ghost of David, by the weight of my transgression. I loved Mark. I truly did. But the innocence of our love was now shattered, irrevocably stained by my actions. My mind replayed the events of that night over and over again, dissecting every moment, every word, every touch, trying to understand why I had done it, why I had jeopardized everything for a fleeting moment of escape and external validation. The internal struggle was relentless, a ceaseless battle within my own mind. Should I confess? The thought of losing Mark, the thought of destroying his trust, of breaking his heart was paralyzing. The fear of seeing his pain, his disappointment was unbearable. But the fear of continuing to live this lie, of building our future on a foundation of deceit, was equally soul-crushing. The secret gnawed at me from the inside out, leaving me hollow and emotionally exhausted. I tried to distance myself from David. I stopped replying to his texts, ignored his occasional calls, but the memory lingered, a persistent shadow in the corners of my mind, a constant reminder of my infidelity, of my weakness. His ghost was always there, a silent observer, in our quiet moments, a wedge between Mark and me. Mark began to notice my distance, my quietness. He asked if everything was all right, if anything was bothering me. I lied again. Another layer of deception, another brick in the wall I was building between us. The marriage began to strain under the unspoken pressure, the weight of my secret. Mark, sensing my withdrawal, became more attentive, more loving, trying to bridge the gap that was opening up between us, his efforts only intensifying my guilt and making me feel even more unworthy of his affection. I became irritable, withdrawn, my patience thin, my once bright demeanor dulled by the constant internal battle. I found myself snapping at small things, retreating into my own thoughts, creating an emotional distance that was palpable even to Mark. He started to look at me with concern, with confusion, a silent question in his eyes that I could not answer. I started having nightmares, vivid, terrifying dreams of being exposed, of Mark's heartbroken face contorted in pain and disbelief. The shame was overwhelming even in sleep. I would wake up in a cold sweat, my heart pounding, feeling the phantom weight of his disappointment, the scorching heat of his anger. I would lie there next to him, watching him, sleep, his face peaceful, unaware of the torment I was enduring and the quiet devastation I had wrought upon our shared life. The burden of the secret was growing heavier by the day, threatening to suffocate me. I knew I could not continue like this. but the path forward was shrouded in a fog of fear and uncertainty. Then came the day our world imploded. It was not a grand confession or a dramatic confrontation. It was far simpler, far crueler. Mark had borrowed my phone to check a sports score. He often did this, and while scrolling, he found it a message from David. A casual, friendly check in nothing explicit, but enough to raise suspicion, especially given my recent mood and distance. He showed me the phone, his face pale, his eyes wide, with a dawning realization, a mix of confusion and horror. The message was innocent on its own, but in the context of our strained relationship and my evasiveness, it was a glaring red flag. It was the smallest thread, but it was enough to unravel the entire tapestry of my lies. "Sarah," he said, his voice barely above a whisper, his gaze fixed on my face, searching for an explanation, a denial, a sign of anything other than guilt. My heart pounded against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat of terror and despair. The air left my lungs. I could not breathe. I could not speak. The words were stuck in my throat, choked by shame and the sudden, terrifying realization that this was it. This was the moment I had dreaded, the moment of reckoning. I looked at him, his kind, familiar face now etched with a pain that I had inflicted, and the lie that had been my constant companion for so long suddenly felt too heavy, too impossible to carry. I knew then that there was no turning back, no way to hide, no way to undo what I had done. The truth would come out. It had to, and it would tear us apart. The confrontation was not a screaming match, as I had envisioned in my nightmares. It was quieter, more devastating. Mark's questions were soft, his voice thick with hurt and betrayal. His every word, a stab to my heart. I tried to explain. I stammered, I cried, I begged for forgiveness. I confessed everything, the loneliness, the feeling of being unseen, the foolish mistake, the profound regret. The words tumbled out a torrent of raw emotion and desperate apologies. But they sounded hollow, even to my own ears. I watched the light leave his eyes as I spoke, his face hardening with each painful admission. The collapse of our world was swift and silent, like a fragile glass object falling to the floor, shattering into a million irreparable pieces. The days that followed were a blur of tears and accusations and a devastating silence that hung heavy between us. Trust, once the bedrock of our relationship, was shattered beyond recognition. The impossible task of rebuilding felt insurmountable. A mountain too high to climb. I saw the pain in his eyes every time he looked at me, a constant reminder of the damage I had done, of the love I had carelessly squandered, the future we had so carefully planned together, the garden, the dog, the family, all of it, evaporated into thin air, replaced by a void of uncertainty and sorrow. I am left now with the profound sadness of what I have lost, or perhaps more accurately, what I have broken. The momentary lapse, the desperate search for external validation, had cost me everything I value. The irreversible change in our relationship and our lives is a heavy burden I carry every day. The weight of my choices is a constant companion, a shadow that follows me everywhere I go. The profound cost of my infidelity is something I will bear for the rest of my life. The woman who sits here tonight is a shadow of her former self, burdened by regret and the crushing knowledge that she alone is responsible for the devastation that now surrounds her. There is no easy path forward, only the long, arduous journey of living with the consequences of my actions and grappling with the question of whether true forgiveness and redemption are ever truly possible after such a profound betrayal.